Kamakalo mashubi ananyule.
Are tsena mo robalang papa. Are. Buira la eng. Buila mo. Buila. Aba ona motho a tlo ba tsena. Wangiti. Hawa man tabang. Kwetsala ngamama.
All right, that video there is of someone who's believed to be on drugs, and this is now the beginning of the process where they are now going to be taken to rehab at a later stage. But let's speak to the man who founded Ladgac, that's Phillemon Moloto, as well as Yasmin, Omar, human rights attorney, who are joining us now for this conversation as we look at, this particular methodology. Does it work at all? Mr. Moloto, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Let's just start first with the reasons why you decided to start Ladgac.
Yeah, good evening, good people. Ladgac was started because we care about our youngsters, we care about our youth in South Africa, and we've realized that they are in drugs and it's affecting our community. Because remember, when these people are on drugs, they are always stealing from people. They vandalize their households. It's just too much. It's just too much on this, and more especially crime. It does so many crime around our communities. Because remember, if you are not working, you have to smoke each and every day about 5 stashes of crystal, and it costs them say around 350 rand. So they are not working, they don't get money anywhere. That's why crime is so high.
So when you, before I come to you, Yasmin, you've seen, I'm sure, some people who are saying you're doing good work, you must continue. But then there are others who have expressed concern that your methods may not necessarily be working, especially if you're going to pounce on someone and their face is all over TikTok. There have been concerns that have been raised on that. What do you say?
I think, thank you for having us on the show on this very important topic. And I think we must be realistic as to the nature of the problem on our hands. We really have drug use, especially by young people in the country, that has reached epidemic proportions. And it is a difficult thing to manage. It is a difficult thing to control. And that is why centers that are created, like Mr. Moloto has introduced, and there are many other centers like that in the country, play such a significant role in this process. Because of the prevalence of drugs in our community, we must be realistic as to how we go about dealing with it, because just imprisoning people who are addicted to drugs is not a solution. It's not going to solve the problem that we're experiencing in the country.
Yasmin, you say imprisoning, how?
Well, the legislation in our country, our courts, have introduced a new method of dealing with offenders who are addicted to drugs. Now we know, like we've seen in that little video that we've just watched, that a lot of people who commit offenses are addicted to drugs. They are drug addicts, and our courts recognize this. So what has happened over the years is our courts have recognized the need to deal with people who are addicted to drugs in a way that could result in them being rehabilitated. Now, this is not a means to be less harsh on these criminals because we just simply feeling sorry for them. It is also a method of dealing with them in the long term. So what the legislature did was the legislature created an act. It's called the Prevention and Treatment for Substance Abuse Act. And that act introduced a new concept when courts are sentencing people. So that allowed for courts, when they're dealing with people who are addicted, to introduce rehabilitation as a form of sentencing.
Let me come back to you, Mr. Moloto. Some people say that, the methods you use pouncing on people. Some of them are sleeping. I mean, when you watch some of the videos, there other people are sleeping, and they simply don't, know what's coming. And some are saying that why would you show their faces all over social media, because that's also creating a stigma. How do you respond to people who say that? Mr. Moloto, are you able to hear us still? Mr. Moloto, I think you are muted. Let's try to see if you can unmute yourself. Because I can see you're saying something, but we can't hear you. All right, let's try to see if we can't get you unmuted and then have a conversation with you. Yasmin, let me come to you in the meantime. When you look at some of the videos, others are raising a concern to say that if you do then have the faces of these young people on social media and you're not hiding their identities, you're creating stigma, but at the same time, you're violating their human rights. Is that correct?
Let me say this: when we're dealing with offenders, say this matter was being seen in court, they are not their faces in court are not concealed, because a court and a trial process are public processes. So when these people appear in court, it's a public facility that where members of the public can look at them. Their faces are going to be seen. So it's one of those things that you can't necessarily, we want to give the benefit of the doubt to people, and we accept that everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But in the same breath, not every discomfort can be protected. And because the criminal procedure in our country is a public proceeding, it's a proceeding where the country must be able to see accused who do wrong being brought to court and tested in court. Because that is a public process, we cannot avoid the fact that their faces are going to be known to the public.
Is it also further compounded by the fact that maybe there may be serious backlogs at some of the public rehab centers, for example? That's why you may see some members of the community deciding to maybe start their own organizations?
Absolutely. I think with the backlog in so many different sectors of our judicial system, and in this case, in the facilities that take care of drug because of that backlog, we see accused often who are sitting in prisons awaiting trial, which is not the intention of the magistrate. The magistrate will order that a suitable sentence for someone is that they must go through the rehabilitation process designated in an appointed rehabilitation facility. And because of the backlog and the number of places we are looking for, we often sit with the situation where accused are sitting in prison awaiting a place at those facilities, but being exposed to hardened criminals and being exposed to drugs in prison facilities that goes against what the sentence imposed upon them planned.
Yeah, and I do understand Mr. Moloto is back on the line, this time on the telephone. Mr. Moloto, I hope you can hear me now. I was asking about the fact that, some people were raising concerns about the methods you use. Others say, well done, it's a good initiative, you really must make sure that we clamp down on drugs. But others were saying that a stigma is created if a face of, someone you suspect to be using drugs is going to be beamed all over social media. It's going to live there forever. What do you say to those who are criticizing you to say, why show their faces?
People must understand one thing. We are not publishing this video because we want to be famous. Firstly, we cannot reach all the youth in South Africa. That's number one. So this is part of awareness. And it's working. It's working because even nowadays, a parent would call me and say, Mr. Moloto, thank you so much. When my kids are bothering me, I just show them your videos and they start behaving, which means it's working. Secondly, we talk to parents before we are taking videos. Remember, we've got more than 300 in our center, and we are only posting few videos. So if the parents give us consent to film, then and to publish as well, we don't just do it without the parents' consent. And on that note, these boys, when are at our center, they've got a smart TVs there. They usually watch themselves being fetched. And it's encouraging them to say, no, I'm not going to live this life ever again. Because they are always watching themselves at the center. And people must just understand it is not easy for someone to just say, take me to rehab. And most of, yes.
When you take them, let's talk about the process that right now, let's say you've taken this young person, you're now headed to this rehab facility. What becomes then the process that unfolds?
From when the parents are calling us, we do take them to our center, and then at our center, we've got programs. We've got psychologists there, we've got social workers, we've got nurses that are professionals. What we do there, I don't want to lie, there is no remedy for drugs. Drugs is demonic. We pray each and every day. We pray a lot at our center. And there are programs that are dealing with mental health. We've got programs like 12-step program at our center. That's how we are assisting them. And another thing, adding to that, we make sure that we keep these boys busy. We check the skills. We deploy them to the locals if they need help. Some of them, we are fortunate sometimes there are people who are coming to our center to offer skills development training. So that's how we assist them.
And before I then go to Yasmin in just a moment, so when they are done with these skills, what happens then? Just give us a sense of some of these success stories.
Yeah, some of them are working because what I do personally, I revisit them at home after a while. After a couple of months, I do go to their houses and check their progress. And if I find you relapsed, I'm taking you back to the center. Because when they leave, there is a form that they are signing to say, I'm no longer going to smoke drugs. And then they declare that if they ever smoke, I must come fetch them. They will stay for a certain period without even their parents paying anything. And then some of them, I've employed them. They are helping me as security guards. Some of them, we are building a center around Moleji. They are busy there doing construction work, more especially those who were trained under skills development training doing construction.
Yasmin, when you then hear that there is consent that is sought before filming from parents, for example, in order to ensure that this is secured, is it enough to get parental consent?
Well, you must remember that there are different ways of getting these drug addicts who are also offenders to a facility. If they are not offenders and it is a situation where they want to be rehabilitated, an adult person will need to consent. If he doesn't consent, there's no way of getting him into that facility. A younger person who is not an offender and whose parents consent to him being put into the facility will be taken into the facility. But what we have is a parallel process where people who are offenders, who go through the court system, apply through the court system as in mitigation of sentence, saying the reason I've done this, or while I was committing the offense, I was addicted to drugs, and drugs played a part in my commission of the offense. When we are dealing with court proceedings, the court has the discretion as a method of sentencing to refer people who are addicted to a rehabilitation center. That is done through the court order. So it's not their consent or otherwise to that procedure is not the deeming factor. What is important is that the court is making that order. It says, instead of me putting you in a conventional prison where I cannot be satisfied that your drug problem is going to be cured, I'm going to send you into this facility because perhaps the magistrate in his head thinks the real cause of the problem of this crime being committed is the use of drugs. And this legislation has gone a long way to rehabilitating youngsters who show the initiative to rehabilitate themselves. Of course, what the system does is if the person who's put into that facility as in the form of their sentencing. The sentencing can be imposed and said, you will serve this term in a drug rehabilitation facility. If while they're in that process or immediately after that, they don't abide by the rules of the facility, the manager of that facility can report the matter back to the probation officer, who then takes the matter back to court, and they are put into prison. So it is a very good method of rehabilitating, especially our youngsters who are addicted to drugs because of the numerous social problems that they are facing.
All right, thank you so much to you both for your time. And certainly, as you say, of course, lots to look at here, but also the issue of drugs is a huge problem. And you think about the festive season and what this means then for parents and some of the signs that they need to look out for. Let me thank you both for your time. That's Phillemon Moloto, Ladgac founder, as well as Yasmin Omar, who's a human rights attorney.